Hello there, gamerinos and gamerinas. Welcome to UnicornStorm. This is Rady, and today I have another spooktastic video game recommendation. Scorn is an amazing game. Well, let me rephrase this. Scorn is an amazing experience with some rather big flaws. The main goal of this game is to make the player feel trapped inside the sick mind of H.R. Giger. Or well, inside his sickening but amazing pieces of artwork. You're all alone in this nightmarish world, inside huge alien facilities that are amalgamations of flesh, bone and living machinery. Defiled corpses are littering the floors, the walls and even the ceiling. Horrible abominations stalk you through dark corridors, and rotten, still pulsating flesh and tentacles cover every surface in the game. And in all of this, we are just an unknown and voiceless wanderer who tries to escape this nightmare. But in doing so, he gets mutilated himself, altered, until he himself isn't distinguishable from all the horrors that surround him. During this journey, we not only have to observe, but also commit atrocities. We aren't really any better than those people who built all this, who designed all this. But then again, we're just doing everything in our power to survive, to escape. That said, there isn't any bigger story in this game. There isn't any grand lore. There aren't any character moments, aside from maybe one scene at the end. This really is just a celebration of Giger's art style. The devs wanted us to explore and experience a world meticulously modeled after Giger's paintings. And in that regard, they succeeded. Be it run-down torture chambers, faintly glowing breeding grounds, or dark and sinister ritual sites. Everything not only oozes Giger's style, but looks actually more like an exact replica of some of his work. And while this gives room for some discussion over how much creativity the devs put in, as opposed to how much they just took from another artist, the fact still stands that it is amazing to traverse and explore these morbid and nightmarish environments. There is so much detail in everything. Everywhere you look, you'll find another scene worthy of a painting. Or, well, a screenshot or something. This amazing design also extends to your inventory. Weapons are made of bone or horn with fleshy appendages. Your health and ammo is represented by a fleshy pot with bloated, blood-filled blisters to heal yourself, and small, bone-like pellets for ammunition. And to let you fully appreciate these beautifully grotesque environments, there's little to no HUD. It only appears when you're actually fighting or losing health or heal yourself. And even then, it's only a little bit at the bottom and the top of the screen. Even interactable objects or instructions are just marked with small white circles. And while this helps in having you not be distracted from the incredible artwork, it sometimes makes it harder for players to understand what they're actually supposed to do, to where they can move certain objects, or why they can't interact with certain objects, or how certain mechanics work, or what kind of mechanics even are in this game. The game isn't really hard by any means, but it can at times be a bit frustrating. And while a lack of hand-holding is absolutely refreshing, the game sometimes expects you to come to solutions without giving you the least bit of information. Yeah, the devs wanted to tell a story without any dialogue, which is certainly a good approach for this kind of game. And you could even argue that this makes the game more inclusive. But it would have been nice if the game just sometimes, here and there, pointed the player in the right direction. Levels in this game are huge labyrinthian complexes, with winding corridors circling in on itself, while the art design and environmental design is strong and competent enough to make even the hallways inside an alien factory thingy, whatever this is, look kinda distinct from one another. The level design isn't too great, at least from a gameplay point of view. I can appreciate that a lot of the areas are symmetrical in shape, with a lot of the hallways leading back to the starting room without much happening in there, without anything to find in there. But when you're trying to find a key item or a door or a piece of machinery to open up a new path, it can get a bit annoying to be presented with 5 different corridors that can lead on for up to a few minutes just to present you with a dead end when you finally made it through. Though to be fair, most of the time you will at least find some ammunition or health on the way and then reach a kind of shortcut to get back onto the critical path. Most of what you're doing in this game is, well, wandering around these huge labyrinths, looking for switches and keys to open up the way to the next area. And while this game is full of puzzles, it is also a bit mindless. Since every switch, every key, every machine is an inconceivable flash construct, you never know what to expect from it. There is some logic behind it. It doesn't just all work how it wants to be. You will come across some of the machines multiple times and they always behave in the same way. But this doesn't help you when you see a specific machine for the first time. And it also doesn't help that you can never foresee the greater impact of your, well, button presses. The puzzles themselves aren't too hard, but it pretty much always comes down to you having to interact with every machine in the area at least once to see what it does, and then you have to conclude from that in which order you have to operate them. After about an hour of gameplay, the game will also introduce enemies. But this game doesn't become an action game. This isn't a shooter. Some might even say the shooter gameplay is tacked on, and it might as well be. But I wouldn't say it's out of place in this game. Could have been done more with it? Sure. But for the most part, I like how it is handled in here. You see, all guns are slow and cumbersome to use, and enemies can kill you pretty quickly. If you're not careful, that is. And for a long time you only have a really short range, hard to aim melee weapon that requires quite a lot of hits to kill the, let's call it, mid-tier basic enemy. There aren't that many enemies in the game. Only 3 basic enemies and I guess 1 mini-boss enemy that's also more a puzzle than an actual fight. And there's also not a lot of weapon variety. You'll find a pistol that's about as strong as your melee weapon, and a shotgun that packs more of a punch, and near the end you even get a grenade launcher. And that's it. But again, this isn't a combat-focused game. In fact, the game doesn't want you to engage with every enemy you see. The game wants you to avoid them. While monsters are certainly hostile, they're not actively hunting you. They're just roaming around the levels and only attack if you get too close. I don't know if this works with every single enemy, but most of the time you can just keep out of range and wait for an enemy to walk by or crawl in one of the many little enemy holes and be erased from existence for all intents and purposes. Well, not quite erased, because enemies react to gunshots. So if you open fire on a monster, all the enemies that are near you, even those who crawled through one of the weird holes, will beeline to your position and kinda gang up on you. And as I've said, a few attacks from an enemy and you're dead. And the game isn't really too generous when it comes to checkpoints. You have to rely on the automatic checkpoints the game gives you, and if the game decides that you haven't done anything noteworthy in the last 20 minutes, then it just takes you back to the start of the level. It isn't too bad though. You get a checkpoint after every major puzzle, but since the actions you're able to take in the game are very limited and you can't influence the occurrence of checkpoints, well, it just really sucks when you die to an ambush after having wandered around for 15 minutes, having collected all kinds of switches or machinery and stuff. That said, I believe I died 4 times in this game. The first time was to the second enemy in the game and I just didn't see it. It was just stupid of me. The second time was because I didn't know how to heal, or that I even can heal. The third time was because I ran into an ambush and enemies spawned behind me, so I couldn't get any distance between me and the enemy. And the fourth time was during the aforementioned mini-boss puzzle fight, because I tried out different tactics. But as we all know, it's not just dying that sends you back to the checkpoint. It's also bugs and crashes. The game didn't crash on me, but I ran into a nasty bug that kinda prevented the game from continuing after a cutscene, so I was stuck. And my last save was half an hour ago. And you can't reload a checkpoint from the pause menu. You have to either die or load it from the main menu, which I didn't know in that particular moment, so I was quite pissed. Well, it worked out in the end. I also heard of some people having problems with textures not loading incorrectly, which can make some puzzles incredibly hard. And I had a few moments where my controls kinda locked up, so I had to press the W key a few times before my character started to move again. But for the vast majority of my playtime, the game worked as expected. And overall, I had a great time with this game. Yeah, the level design could have been better in some instances. Running back and forth multiple long hallways took up a lot of time. Combat wasn't always the smoothest affair, and some puzzle solutions required you to trust that the developers don't want to fuck you over. And they genuinely don't. It's just that you don't know that beforehand. So, would I recommend this game? Well, I already said this is a recommendation from the start. But I have to make small concessions. If you like and appreciate the works of H.R. Giger just for a tiny bit, then you should play this game. If you enjoy playing exploration-based games with a slow pace and a bit of puzzle solving, then this might be a game for you. And if one of those things holds true for you and you already own a subscription for the Xbox Game Pass, then there's no reason why you shouldn't play this game. And among other games, this might be a reason for you to subscribe to the Xbox Game Pass. But would I recommend this game for the asking price of about $40? I'm not so sure about that. After having played through the game, I'd consider buying it. Physical, that is. Not digitally. So yeah, if they release a physical edition of this game, right now I would buy it. Because to me this was an amazing experience. But with all the flaws of this game, and with a runtime of about 5 hours, which is well worth it considering the amount of visual detail in this game. But yeah, a flawed game that takes you about 5 hours with shallow puzzles and unremarkable combat. Yeah, I guess 20 or 25 bucks would have been better. But yeah, that's highly subjective. Depending on your values or preferences, this might be well worth the price, or even 10 bucks would be too much. So make of it what you want. Again, this is a great experience. It could have been a better game. I still had fun with the gameplay. I still think it went in the right direction. There are just a few things that could have been ironed out. But as a piece of horror, a different kind of horror, not terror, scary horror, but more this creeping horror that disgusts you and sits at the back of your mind, I can fully recommend this game. Especially for Spookyween. So yeah, have a great day, have a great Halloween season, scare yourself with something fun, and I hope to see you again on the next game.